AEA staff support some of the best work happening in school buildings all over the state. We're going to take our listeners on the road into these buildings and talk to AEA and district staff about partnerships making a difference for kids. About 2 years ago, Grantwood Area Education Agency brought an innovative approach to teaching mathematics to eastern Iowa.
Area teachers are learning construction. It's one innovative approach to try to make math more exciting. Well, teachers from 9 eastern Iowa school districts are learning to apply the lessons in the classroom. And KCRG TV9's Kristen Rogers gives us a look inside the training that's been underway this week.
Contextual learning brings real-world application to math lessons, including the algebra needed to run a business and the geometry needed in construction and industrial tech. On this episode, I hit the road to Marion High School, where I interviewed 3 teachers, 5 high school students, and Grantwood AEA math consultant Emily Logan to find out how they're answering the most common question math teachers get asked by students. When am I ever going to use this? Emily, what are we going to see today at Marion?
So we're here today to check out contextualized learning. A lot of schools in our area have implemented AMPed class, which is pairing algebra with some CTE course. Here at Marion, it's math and business. And so we're going to see that and hear from students that are engaged in that class. And then we'll also hear from geometry and construction. So that's the sophomore level class where students are pairing math with construction and learning basically their math skills through building things and creating products. So we'll hear from some students and some teachers about what that's been like for them here at Marion.
And how many schools do we have involved approximately?
Yeah, we're in that 15-ish range within Grantwood. We have several other school districts that came to the training at Grantwood around the state. So some of those would be outside of sort of our jurisdiction, but they came to that training after hearing kind of what's been happening here in eastern Iowa.
So obviously the districts in Grantwood, they get quite a bit of support from us as they implement, right?
Yeah.
What's that look like?
Yeah, so that first year was actually just recruiting and trying to let people know, what is this all about? How could you make it work? We actually did a lot of communicating with counselors and principals and superintendents, because that could have changed their FTE or it might change their scheduling. In the end, we didn't have to mess with that very much, and that was part of what our role was, is to help them think about how can we implement this without hiring more teachers, without totally upheaving what the schedule looks like. And then after that, obviously the training, but then once they went to the training, I think teachers felt like, okay, I know what this is about maybe, but I still gotta put this into action. And so we spent a lot of time going to those schools and engaging in the classrooms with the kids and troubleshooting. How do I get equipment? How do I raise money to get equipment? What kinds of projects might I want to do? So we helped a lot in that capacity for those schools that were just starting it. In some of our bigger districts, we really spent a lot of time helping them think about how to roll this across multiple buildings equitably. So if you had a really strong CTE teacher at one building and math teacher, we wanted still that experience to exist in the other buildings. And so we, again, did a lot of troubleshooting and support within that.
I was happy to hear Grantwood AEA does so much to support teachers in implementing contextualized learning long after the initial training. But I was eager to sit down with Marion freshmen and sophomores to ask them about this way of learning math. This could be for either class. Did any of you really know what the class was going to be about before you took it, or what was that like?
I was told it was going to be a lot of hands-on stuff. I'm very visual and hands-on learner, so it's good for me to have a little bit of both.
Same for me. I've heard about it personally from like people who took it last year, like Efren. He told me something about it, and it sounded like stuff that I'm more interested in, doing less just math and doing like a mix of both. Plus I've been learning better with those. So
all right, so let's follow up on that. Why do you think you're learning the math better in the setting where they're team taught?
It's hands-on.
Yeah. Give me an example. Like what would you do in a typical day?
Well, like t-shirts, for instance, you gotta figure out like what's your cost, revenue, profit, all that stuff. And so actually using the math to find like answers you would use in real life, it's easier to like apply it, I guess. And if you have to do it later down the road, I'd say you already have a good example how to do it as well.
These students can already see how this way of learning math will help it stick with them long after they graduate. I couldn't wait to see how they applied their mathematical thinking. Now, you both have brought a project that you did, so maybe you can set them on the table and we can kind of show the video a little bit. What type of math did you have to use to kind of complete the projects that you have there?
So you have to figure out like what you want your starting size to be, like your total dimension, and then you gotta figure out like adding room for mistakes and errors. And then for like this one, you have to figure out your stripes and then the block, and there's like a lot of little math that you have to get right, because if you don't, then it's going to look weird.
We had to make a template for it, so that had to be exact so that we could get this exact. So we've had to do a lot. We built a miniature house, and we had to scale everything down, get the correct measurements, and cut everything to size. We have to calculate how many steps we need, the height of those steps, and then the overall length of the steps. It's really incorporated the math into the building.
With such variety and applications, I was curious about how these students thought it was helping them in traditional math classes as well.
Math has always been kind of a struggle for me. It's always been like more challenging than other subjects. But like learning new ways to solve things and how to actually do them, that's helped me with a lot, and how to figure stuff out in different ways.
Yeah, I feel like we've gotten a better understanding, and I feel like you get like view from different angles from other people that you get to work with, doing like the groups of 4 or 3 people kind of have different views on how you should solve math.
Do you think they should teach all geometry or algebra in this type of a setting?
I think it depends on the learner.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think some people do better with this, and some people just be better math class.
I am a visual and hands-on person, so like in this class we make t-shirts and make spreadsheets to calculate profit and revenue, and then we would actually make the shirts and calculate errors and mistakes, defects that we made on the shirts. And so I think it helps for me to actually be doing some of it so that I can use it later on, knowing that I have the experience. Whereas if you're just sitting in a classroom writing on paper, I feel like it's hard to apply it to the real world.
I know parents and community leaders agree with the students. It's that real-world application that's important. I asked these students for examples of how they're able to use these concepts in their day-to-day life, and if they thought it'd be possible to help them in their future careers.
I'm taking a construction tech class, I think 3rd quarter, so I'm getting involved in that field, and this was a great way to get me into that with the whole AMP and GIC, getting into that construction aspect.
In metalworking, I like it, and I've already passed the class, and after the basketball season, I actually have a little gig.
Like you have a little side job?
It's something my mom does, welding.
I've learned at my house how to do some different things, but now actually learning how to properly do it is finding my interest in it.
I think it's safe to say contextualized learning has conquered the age-old question, when am I ever going to use this? I thanked the students and was ready to move on to the teachers making this all happen. How excited were you after the first training that summer?
A little overwhelming because we didn't know anything about it.
I think every one of us would say we were very apprehensive going in. Is this really what we're going to do? We've never taught a class together. How are we going to mesh? How are we going to meld? What is this? There's a lot we didn't know about it. But I would say when we walked out of that, I think we were super excited. We could see how the kids could connect everything, how stuff would go together. And through the lens of that provided by the AEA, we were able to really come into our own. And we had lots of questions coming out. And they were great with helping us. These are the things we need. And they were great with helping us get those things collected and put together.
Professional development's not my cup of tea, and this was by far and away the best thing I've ever been to. I'd recommend it to absolutely any teacher looking to get into it. It was phenomenal.
It's clear contextual learning makes students more eager to learn math curriculum, and it even provides them with real-life skills. But I found out there are other key benefits to this teaching philosophy.
There's certainly a school of thought that homework is how we teach responsibility. And I think in this class, you see this moment where it's we can teach responsibility in lots of ways. And one of them is we're responsible for these shirts. These people expect us to produce them. And I think that the students really got that from that.
And I think the pride, they would mention going down the halls that they saw the different shirts that people were wearing and teachers. We made a set of cinch bags at the end of the year. A couple of kids helped us do that for the soccer team. And one of the girls was a freshman on the soccer team, and she couldn't wait to take those to the coach. She's also the same one that told me when we did our notebook project, she has never finished a science project or a math project ever in her life. And she finished that notepad project, and she's like, super proud. Just the pride that came out of her was really cool to really see, because it was something she'd never done. She'd never accomplished something like that in that same way. And it totally turned a corner for her, I think, for the year.
In my class, or I guess both of ours, the working together. The working together. I put them, so I'm kind of integrating our building thinking classrooms that we're doing. And I put them in random groups of 3, and it's like, you don't get to whine who you're with, you figure it out. And my God, they can work together. They know how to talk to each other for the most part, but they can talk to each other, and they know how to finish something together, even if we have differing opinions on other things.
I think that team building and being able to work as a team collectively is one of the most powerful things we provide.
Speaking of teamwork, contextualized learning at Marion High School uses a co-teaching model. I asked how they liked working with another teacher in the classroom.
Well, I teach geometry, and I'm co-teaching the construction part. Guess what I know about construction? Nothing. So I am learning with the kids, and I can tell, like, oh, that kid has no idea what's happening over there. And then I go ask Mr. Fleege, who knows it all. So I'm learning right with them, and then they're just not afraid to ask questions. They're not afraid of the equipment. He answers things different than I do, and so it's just this nice mesh of, they just get both sides.
But what about the kids? I was curious if they've seen any results in their understanding and appreciation of math.
We haven't looked at the numbers specific. I would like to see us split our numbers for the math out for that. But I know I've heard a variety of students say, I never passed a math class in middle school, or many classes, and they're passing. They've made it through, they're understanding the math, and I think that's probably our biggest win.
Then you have this other super awesome thing that's happening because kids are loving it. I'm equally as excited if a kid looks back and says, I enjoyed that. I learned something. I think I want to do construction because I did this, or I think I could run a business because I did this. Or I might be interested in just like checking it out more instead of like, I hated math, I hate school. To me, those are big wins that I don't know that we can always quantify.
They always knew what was going on. They were engaged. They were never not engaged, which most students who don't like math, they're on their phone, they're doing something different, they're not engaged. But they said that kind of sold them, that they could see even students who don't enjoy or like math in particular were very engaged, knew what was going on, knew the math, was learning, and was still having a positive experience.
I was thrilled to hear it wasn't just the gifted students benefiting from contextualized learning, but the students who normally struggle with math are benefiting too.
So I have the second year of kids. So they taught them last year, and I have a girl, and she's just like, I hated math. She never passed a math class. She gets to these guys, she passed that, and she's the first one in the wood shop, and she just loves it. And I think the pacing of it helps. So it's spread out over a year instead of just a semester. So instead of just cramming math every single day for 90 minutes, it's half and half. So they have extra time to get help. They have extra time to think about it. And then they see it actually being done in real life. And then they have this connection piece.
I couldn't be more happy to hear both teachers and students at Marion High School are getting a lot out of contextual learning. I asked Grantwood AEA math consultant Emily how she felt reviewing the results from these Eastern Iowa schools.
I would say the day that we brought all the districts together at Grantwood, we had 12 or 13 districts represented that day. Something that's really rewarding for me is to hear teachers say, this is the best thing I've ever done. I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep teaching, and this is why I want to keep teaching. Like, this is awesome. I wish we had done this years ago. Those types of comments, we can't help but give you goosebumps and just be like, it was worth it just for that. To keep teachers teaching is worth it.
I can definitely echo that. Like, this is my favorite class to teach, and any time that we need Emily, whether it's her directly or any of her colleagues at the AEA, she's on top of things just like that. She helps us a ton to, keep growing what we have right now too.
Yeah, I would not have known it existed if it wasn't for Emily bringing it to us. These guys can attest. They were a revolving door of tours last year. I mean, we were bringing somebody in almost every week, almost the whole year. As far as all the way by Omaha, Ames, Bettendorf. I mean, it was all over the place. People coming to see, like, what does this look like?
I heard all I needed to hear. I thanked the teachers for their kind words and sat down with Emily for some final reflections. If you listen to the story, it sounds like it's gone well. It's been rolled out successfully. What are you excited about when we talk to students and teachers.
Yeah, it's good to hear from the kids that they're saying the things that you hoped they were going to say, that they were having fun, they were enjoying it, but that they were really learning the math. I think that was one of our concerns when we were first thinking about this as a concept. How do we make sure that this is a rigorous math course? And you can see maybe from talking to the kids, you had a very wide variety of students in there. Students who really didn't like math, that wasn't their thing, maybe hadn't been successful. But I know sitting in that group of students, you also have students that want to be engineers and potentially a vet. And so you really have that gamut. And that was really exciting to see from the students and their perspective, yet they all had really positive things to say. And I don't know that that's always the case.
And that's what this is all about, the students. Math doesn't have to be everyone's favorite subject, but it's amazing to see that so many high school students, even the ones who normally struggle with math, are showing new appreciation for learning. I'm John Speer, and this has been On the Road.